Hello guys, this is Crimson Dante Gamer, and today I am bringing about um, a video wanting to talk about 4 bullet points basically. I want to talk about GPU entry, mid, high range, and GT/GTX cards. Talk about resolution, what is weak display, what is mid range, and what is high range. Talk about NVIDIA's company progression of GPUs and AMD company, NVIDIA being a monopoly and people's opinions. All right. So the first thing I wanted to talk about is the GPU entry, mid, high range, and GTX/GT cards. All right. So the first thing to start off, and this video, minded, I'm only gonna talk about specifically for the GT10 series, only for the GT10 series. If I start putting up any other graphics cards, it's gonna make it a very long video. So the GT1030, what I think symbolizes to me, this specific graphics card, to me symbolizes of the boundary between mid-range and low spec. That's the boundary, in my opinion. So, a GT1030, can it game in 180p gaming? Yes, it can. Can it run games on 180p on 60 FPS? On 60 FPS? Really depends. If you're gonna game something like Overwatch, something lightweight, yes, it can. Something that is around 10 gigabytes, that is on 2016-2017 title, yes, it can. It can totally game on 60 FPS. It can game Overwatch just fine on high settings on 60 FPS. A GT 1030 can do that. No problem. That's the thing I wanted to talk about. And anything above the GT 1030 is a mid-range graphics card. So let's talk about what kind of graphics cards there are. So we have a GT 1030, which is the entry level. We have a GTX 1050 and a 1050 Ti, which are the mid-range. We have a GTX 1050 with 2 gigabytes of RAM, a GTX 1050 with 4 gigabytes of RAM, and a GTX 1050 Ti with 4 gigabytes of VRAM. Then we have a GTX 1060 with 3 gigabytes of VRAM, a GTX 1060 with 6 gigabytes of VRAM, which from the GTX 1060, which actually is a high-range graphics card, in my opinion, it is a high-range graphics card because it can actually game on 2K, no problem. And above that is the GTX 1070, the 1080, the 1080 Ti. Now, the only reason why I'm not putting the 1070 Ti because the 1080 pretty much takes its place. It's a graphics card that still exists, but that graphics card, one, it came in too late, and two, the 1080 pretty much takes it over, and it's cheaper, and it has more performance by like a few FPS higher, by like 5 or 6 FPS higher. It really much more worth it to get the 1080 than the 1070 Ti, which I don't really think that the 1070 Ti should exist. Anyways, uh, regarding on that, so about the GPUs, a person I saw on, uh, perhaps you probably know him, UFD Tech, on his video, about Volta being obsolete. Here comes our fear. In this video, there is some guy, I'm not gonna tell names, that said that the GTX 1063 gigabyte is an entry level gaming card, which actually isn't. That's a mid-range graphics card. It still is a mid-range because there isn't really anything new to really go by, and a 1070 Ti is a 1080 basically, so you can't really consider that as a graphics card. Um, that's what I wanted to talk about. And what else? What else is there? He said that the 1070 was a mid-range graphics card, which no means is a mid-range. That's a high-range graphics card and is a high-range graphics card, and it still is, because there isn't anything new. Now, if you look at the notebook checks, Class 1 are all high-range graphics cards. These are the high-range graphics cards. So Class 1 is considered to be high-range, and all the high-range GPUs are right here. So the lowest high-range GPU is considered a 470, a Radeon RX 470, 8 GB. So the GTX 1060 is above the 470, which is right around here. There it is, a GTX 1060. Now I could say why I would consider being at a mid-range graphics card, but entry level, nah. A GTX 1063 gigabyte is a mid-range because it has 3 gigabytes of VRAM. It has a limit. If it was 4 gigabytes of VRAM, at least I could say it could probably be on the list on being a high range, but it's not. So I would classify in class 2. But a GTX 1060 is still a GTX 1060, which it has a similar performance to a GTX 980 or a RX 580, which is actually pretty good if you think about it. And yeah, which is why it's still on this list on being a high range graphics card. So when we go back down to class 2 are all mid-rangers. These are all mid-range. Even a 980 on GTX 980M, which is for a laptop, is a mid-range GPU. So when you look at it, a GTX 960 is also mid-range. These are all mid-range. A GTX 960 has similar performance to a GTX 1063 gigabyte, which is why, like I said, a GTX 1063 gigabyte, 3 gigabyte, is a mid-range GPU, essentially. And a GeForce GTX 970 is still a mid-range GPU, which is why it's still on. A GTX 970 is not a mid-range; it's a high-range GPU, which is why it's on class 1. So when you go further down, we consider that on the 10 series, which is what we pretty much are going to be talking about, the GeForce GTX 1050 is the lowest mid-range, and the GTX 1030 has a similar performance of a 960 or a 965M. So the 960 is right here. The 750 Ti is close on the performance to a 960M. So which is why it's still here, which is really great budget GPU to buy even right now. And when you go below this point, these are the true entry level cards. A GT 1030 is the boundary between entry level. These are all entry level GPU right here. Now, granted, the lowest GPU, which some people could consider not being an entry level GPU, actually being low spec, which actually is still an entry level GPU, is a GeForce 940M. That's still an entry level GPU because it has the ability to game above 720p. Like 900p or 180p, it can game some games on those settings, which is why it's still on this list. Now on class 3, this is where it goes to be low spec. 930MX is a low spec GPU, and anything below a 930MX is low spec. So granted, these are the listings. I don't make those listings. This is a website that makes the listing based on people. So based on this website, you can see what's low end, what's mid range, and what's whatever. So that's a done deal for the GPUs. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is resolution and what is a weak display and a mid-range. So currently there are 5 different resolutions. There is 720p, 900p, 2K, 4K, and 5K. Those are the different resolutions. If you look over here, there's a ton of different resolutions. Like I said, there is 720p is the lowest resolution, but you can see that there's barely any 720p monitors, if not close to 720p. But I pretty much put this as a 720p monitor because if you look at the resolution, that's pretty damn close to 720p. And yeah, that's pretty much the weakest resolution you can get. This is low spec. This is entry level. This is mid range. Like 900p is entry level. 900p monitors. So if you continuously go down, this is pretty much mid range. This is all mid range, and this is entry to low spec. And this is entry. So yeah, this is mid range, kind of. But 180p is the true mid range, everybody knows that. And 4K is the high range, so is 2K is also high range. 2K is in the boundary between mid range and high range, so I would call it high range still. So these are the resolutions, the different resolutions that you can see here. My monitor is currently this one, which I'm happy with this monitor. Mine is a mid-range monitor. I could have bought a 4K monitor for a little bit higher price, but I decided to go with Samsung because it looked nice. It was a curved monitor, and curved monitor actually looks pretty nice. And yeah, this over here I think is, let me check it real quick, guys. This over here I think is let me see what it supports. It doesn't support FreeSync. That's weird. Oh, never mind. It has FreeSync. This is a FreeSync monitor. Is a 144 hertz monitor. So yeah, and the 180. There's actually 180p G-Sync monitors, but not on this specific website or store for computers and monitors and whatever. Um, So the next thing I wanted to talk about, besides the resolution, so we covered that pretty much, that 180p is the true mid-range, and if somebody says that it's a entry-level monitor, which it's not, it's gonna take a couple of more years until it actually becomes a entry-level monitor. Probably a couple, 5 or 6 years. Even if 8K becomes the new monitor, the new um, high range 4K and 8K will be the new high rangers, and 180p and 2K will be the mid rangers, and 900p and 720p will be entry level slash low spec level. These are gonna, that's how it's gonna go. So yeah, further on, continuing on my whole talk about the GPUs and whatnot in companies. So next thing we're talking about is NVIDIA company progression and GPU. Uh, talk about NVIDIA's company progression of GPUs and AMD company's GPUs. So apparently people are wanting new GPUs to come out, and all these fucking UFD Tech and all these fucking reviewers are wanting new GPUs to come out, and I'm like, dude, we just got our GPUs a year and a half ago, which really isn't that long ago, a year and a half ago, and you already want new GPUs? We don't even have 8K monitors to freaking be able to power those. We don't have GPUs to power up those monitors, and those monitors are not even out yet to the public. The public can't buy 8K monitors right now. If you go to the freaking store, all you're gonna see is 4K and 2K at max, and there aren't really that many 4K and 2K monitors, at least where I live. Mostly are 180p monitors, unless you order from a different company. Anyways, so 180p is the mid-range. That much we know, and the companies are really, people wanting the companies to put out more GPUs. But the thing is, that's going to be really bad because that's going to inflate the GPUs to be more expensive. And if it becomes more expensive, it's going to be harder for people to buy GPUs, and that's going to make it more difficult. And that's going to make the company being more of a monopoly than anything else, which is going to bring to another bullet point I'm going to talk about. So, the last bullet point, like I said, is Nvidia being a monopoly in people's opinions. Well, apparently some people are actually promoting to spend money as much as they want for Nvidia. They're promoting to spend their money because, oh, spending more money means more progression, which is actually a stupid argument if you think about it. That is a very stupid argument because that way you are allowing the company to control you. Why would you do that? Why would you do and give the satisfaction for a company to control you and your money? That's so stupid. We just got our GPUs, you already want new GPUs, and you're allowing to spend more money for the company to control you to give you more GPUs. Like, if a fucking GPU comes with one frame better, let's say one frame better, or like, ooh, 10 frames better, like from 120 frames to 130 frames on every game. Like, let's say every game runs with 120 FPS on that GPU. And then there's a new GPU that runs 130 frames. You're gonna buy the 130 FPS GPU? Why? Why when the 120 FPS GPU is enough? And there aren't any new resolutions to run with that GPU. That's my point. There is no reason for the company to make any new GPUs, so fucking stop asking them to come out with Volta and Ampere when it's not needed. Wait till new monitors come out. Wait a couple of years. Wait. till that till the technology catches up with the GPUs. Like when new monitors come out, that's when new GPUs should come out. That's what I believe in. There aren't new monitors out yet, so there shouldn't be new GPUs yet. Why would they be new GPUs when the current GPUs can run everything just fine? I don't get it. If somebody can tell me down in the comment section below, that would be nice. But that's essentially all I wanted to talk about. This has been Crimson Dante Gamer. If you really think that just you can start a discussion below the comments if you really think that it's a good thing that Nvidia is progressing and that new GPUs are coming out. Go ahead, write it down in the comment section below. Make a conversation. I would love that. If you enjoyed this video, give a like, give us a subscribe. I will try to make more videos like this later on in the future. Once in a while, I'll give my opinion about things. I felt like that's something I needed to talk about, and people talking about unnecessary things just pisses me off sometimes, and I feel like I needed to um, really talk about my opinions about these things and talk about actual facts, what it really is. And saying that 180p is an entry level GPU, that just shows how cocky people are, how much of a douchebag they are, and how much they really think they're above everybody else. And that is my opinion on things and my thoughts on things. You can think about whatever you like, but I just wanted to really briefly touch about these things. And yeah, and I'll see you guys later on the next video. Peace.